Hello, this is Cyan,
And I'm Magenta.
and we are Cyan Magenta Media. Today, I wanted to cover one of what I think is like the most important thing going on right now in the Trump regime. There's a bunch of crazy stuff happening, but this one doesn't seem to get as much play. You know, you hear the polling is really good on like deportation of violent criminals and terrorists. I kind of want to talk a little bit about how they're using that as sort of a shield to pull people off the street that are dissidents and that disagree with the government and ship them to an El Salvadorian prison. So what happened was Marco Rubio and the Trump regime made an agreement to use this horrible prison. El Salvador had a crazy, crazy crime problem, right? We're
Right.
talking like insane high, like some of the highest murder rates in the world, violent gangs all over the streets. So they've used this maximum security prison to round up all these gang members. Listen, the crime was really bad in El Salvador. I think it's inhumane what they're doing, but at the same time, they had like an extreme situation that kind of called for extreme measures.
Which is also why so many migrants escape to the US from El
Yeah.
Salvador
And
specifically.
that's not even to bring up the fact that one of the reasons they're so destabilized in South America is because of CIA operations and assassinations that we've done to overthrow. Every time they get a slightly socialist or a slightly progressive regime down there, we send a bunch of people down to coup them or kill them in some circumstances. But this is a little bit of an inside of the prison they're going to. I kind of wanted to give you an idea and show you, and then we're going to have a couple of interviews with Tom Homan, the director of ICE, which I wanna make one thing clear. Tom Homan is a massive, massive piece of shit, and he was also, Obama's ICE director,
Hmm.
because Obama is the deporter in chief, as they say, because he has deported more than anybody. I think still to this day, Trump is probably looking at Obama's numbers and be like, "We gotta get there." He did horrible things.
Even more than Trump round one?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that, Obama still has the most deportations. But, yeah, let's get into the story. This is going to be CNN. They did, like, a little bit of an inside, view in the prison.
And seemingly shell shocked, bound for a prison where the past is erased and the future is a door that never opens. More than 250 alleged criminals deported from the U.S. arriving in El Salvador over the weekend. Most are from Venezuela, accused of belonging to Tren de Aragua, a violent transnational gang. Their destination? El Salvador's terrorism confinement center, known as SECOR, a supermax prison built by President Nayib Bukele to house his country's most dangerous criminals. One by one, hundreds of guards process these new arrivals, who are stripped of choice, power, and identity. These men described as the worst of the worst, tattooed with reminders of El Salvador's dark past. It's tense and uncomfortable. But here, officials say comfort isn't meant to exist.
There's no mattresses, there's no sheets. You've got a toilet over here for them to go to the bathroom. You've got this basin here that they use to bathe themselves. And then you can see there's a barrel of water that they can drink from.
Critics point specifically to the prison's strict control and isolation of inmates, calling it a violation of human rights.
The director brought up that a lot of folks will raise concerns from a human rights perspective and an abuse of human rights, that he's calm hearing that because he sees it day to day, the process they go through to maintain, as he sees it, proper punishment.
And now, that proper punishment isn't just for alleged Salvadoran criminals, it's also for those the U.S. decides to send away, an outsourcing of confinement into Bukele's prized prison.
That is the place that we are sending people that aren't from El Salvador.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Like, why are we sending criminals from Venezuela to El Salvador?
Basically, what we're doing is this isn't, you know how we still have Guantanamo Bay
Yeah,
because it's in Cuba
yeah.
and we can basically do whatever we want and American rules don't apply?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the same concept here. This is why when people say Trump is setting up concentration camps, this is one. They are
Yeah.
taking people that are not that have not had due process. This is what we're going to get into.
Mm-hmm.
There's people being sent to these prisons that haven't even faced trial. You have people who we're going to cover a story specifically of one. There's right now in that prison, there is a gay Venezuelan hairdresser.
I read something short about him on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also Jersey Reyes, who is a professional soccer player or former professional soccer player in Venezuela, who escaped Venezuela because he criticized the Maduro regime in Venezuela, and he was a political dissident. came to the United States for asylum, was granted, and he's been out deported back. That's what these people do. You're tired, you're poor. The people we're supposed to take. This is what we're fucking
Mhm.
doing with them. And the evidence that they're using for these guys being gang members, it just came out. The ACLU has an article out right now, that it is based on there's a criteria, right? Most of it's based around tattoos.
Yeah.
If you have 8 points on this list of criteria, you are eligible for deportation. Now, these are tattoos like a crown tattoo or, certain tattoos that are very common in the Hispanic community. So at this point, it literally just seems like they're looking for brown people with tattoo, and then they're using that as enough justification to deport you out of the country because you don't even get to. People are constantly like, well, if they're American citizens, they have nothing to worry about. They're not even getting the due process to get a trial to prove that they're American citizens.
Yeah, they're
They don't
just
just
disappearing them off the
Yeah,
streets.
they don't just say, "Oh, you're an American citizen, that's fine." If you're picked up on the street, put on a plane, and sent to El Salvador same day,
Good luck proving that you're American.
you could have a passport, you could have a green card, you could have a visa, you've been fucking born here, but you have no chance of getting in front of a judge. They black bag you, they put you in a van, they put you on a plane, and they send you to this fucking prison.
The grad student
Mhm.
from there's a couple of them. There's one from Colombia,
Yeah.
there's one but the woman, a judge ordered that she is not to be removed and they still sent her to Louisiana.
Yeah, she's in Louisiana. Her family was talking to her and didn't know where she went, and then they found out she's in Louisiana.
And they're lucky they even got
I
answers.
know. That's more a lot of people are getting. To me, this is of all the fascist authoritarian things Trump has done, this is the most. When you start blackbagging people and sending them to a concentration camp without due process, that's full on.
That's red lights blaring, alarms going off. This is fascism.
Yes.
And then you can say, "Oh, well, I mean, they were deported. That they're not here. They're in a prison somewhere else." Guess what? Auschwitz and Birkenau are in Poland.
Yeah,
I've been there.
it's true. I mean, I know the first one was in Germany, but most of them are outside of the borders of Germany, the traditional borders of Germany.
Hmm.
That's my one of my first thoughts I had was, "Oh shit, we're doing this outside the country. Guess who else did that?" Because you can get away with a lot more when it's not in your own country. You're not violating American rights when you're in El Salvador.
Yeah, or
It's
Cuba,
Yeah,
Guantanamo Bay. It's truly horrifying what is happening, and there's a lot of people speaking up about it. But unfortunately, a lot of people that are speaking up about it because it matters to them if they have a green card or they're here on a visa and they're not an American citizen, if they speak up, they're even more of a target, just like that
yeah.
professional soccer player.
They're the first in line to
So
get snatched up.
we as natural born citizens, especially those of us that look white, need to speak up. We need to not stop talking about this. We need to keep putting out the truth and, show these clips and talk about these people. As of right now, we wouldn't get black bagged, but what's going to happen next week?
But the thing too is what people don't realize is every time there's a fascist regime, you get a lot of fascist bootlickers, right? That are very much on the side of the regime because it's the others. Okay. What always happens with a fascist regime, because it's a hierarchy based system, right? So you have the pure Aryans at the top, like under Nazi Germany, right? And
Hmm.
then everyone else below them was inferior, right? Just like the term white, you know how we say there's no such thing as white people?
Right.
Because it's a very flexible term that has changed over time. Just wait until you're not MAGA enough. Wait until, the Opus Dei Catholics aren't evangelicals. We're talking down the road, but that happens to you eventually. You might think right now, I am an Opus Dei Catholic who is full on MAGA, which is all fine and dandy for right now. But wait until that fascist regime starts to narrow the definition of who's an insider. Like I said, you could be Catholic. Maybe one day they don't like Catholics. It's all got to be evangelicals, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's as stuff as stupid as you're in the wrong profession because we already see you can't be a true MAGA at this point and be in the federal government like as a worker.
No, that's not going to protect you.
That's
Your
not going to
your
protect you.
your job is going to get disappeared just like they're disappearing all of these people.
All right, so when we have some more clips here, I want to show you Caitlin Collins now from CNN.
involved in what right now is shaping up to be one of the biggest legal battles of his first 2 months in office. The day started with a deeply frustrated federal judge in Washington insisting that the Trump administration answer for what he calls a, quote, awfully frightening use of the 1798 wartime statute known as the Alien Enemies Act. It's what we've been talking about all week. The judge seems skeptical about its use, but also the timing of how and when this policy was invoked. Specifically, the judge wants to know who made the call to let the flights carrying alleged Venezuelan gang members going to El Salvador keep going, despite his order asking them to turn around.
One of the ways Trump is testing power is basically overtly ignoring federal courts.
Yeah.
Basically, anytime a federal court does blocks any of his actions, he's just ignoring it. And this is one of the most blatant. This is the flight full of migrants that was sent to Venezuela. And mid-flight, the judge ordered the plane to be turned around and stopped because there was no due process and they were being illegally deported. And she's going to kind of go over the judge and his thoughts on it, and kind of what happened.
Judge James Boasberg vowed, and I'm quoting him now, "I will get to the bottom of whether they violated my order, who ordered this, and what the consequences will be." He's gotten few answers in the nearly 1 week since those first 2 flights took off from Texas last Saturday. About an hour after that, the judge verbally ordered any planes carrying people being deported under the Alien Enemies Act to turn around. Then he issued the order in writing before any of those planes touched down at their destination, calling for a pause on the entire process. But those planes didn't turn around, and they did eventually land in El Salvador. So as he sought answers today, the judge wanted to know why this proclamation was essentially signed in the dark on Friday night, early Saturday morning. When a reporter posed that very question to the president, Trump said he couldn't answer when the act was signed because he didn't sign it.
I don't know when it was signed because I didn't sign it. Other people handled it. But Marco Rubio's done a great job, and he wanted him out, and we go along with that.
That doesn't sound like much of an executive order
Well,
if it didn't come from the unfortunate president himself. And additionally, this is how democracy ends. If he is ignoring the judicial branch and telling them to just keep going
Yeah.
and just listen to him, don't listen to the judge, we have 3 parts to our government that are supposed to be equal and balance themselves out. And this is the first big piece of the Jenga puzzle that's
Well,
toppling.
he's already got Congress because Congress isn't doing anything.
Yeah.
Everything he's done with Doge, everything he's done with all this, if he went through Congress and he did it, it sucks, but I mean, it's how it works. He's doing all this without Congress specifically because he knows he can't get this stuff passed. Some of it he could. He could maybe do like a more minor versions of all this horrible stuff he's doing, like with Doge and the cuts.
Yeah.
But it would be a lot harder, a lot more time consuming. It's the proper way to do it. So now the next step is we got rid of Congress. Let's get rid of the judiciary. Mike Johnson and Josh Hawley are introducing a bill that doesn't allow nationwide injunctions from federal judges. So essentially what happens if you're not directly in the jurisdiction of that district court, that you cannot impose a nationwide injunction. The last line of defense that we have is federal court judges putting an injunction on something, saying you have to stop this now. They want to make it so you can't do that.
Yeah, because then they can just move everyone to the jurisdiction of a judge that will just
Yeah.
let them do whatever they want.
Yes. Because they say that the Democrats are shopping courts to get the rulings they want. It's just that's not. I mean, first of all, everyone court shops.
Yes.
And also the entire 5th district court, like Texas and Louisiana, every horrible piece of legislation that has been upheld that Trump has done has gone through there. They're just a green light for anything crazy that Project 2025 or MAGA wants done. So no one court shops more than they do. He literally court shopped the entire Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Every major piece of legislation we've ever done is done through court shopping.
Yes.
Look at Rosa Parks.
Yes.
We literally we picked Rosa Parks to have a case to go to the Supreme Court to overturn pieces of segregation.
Yes.
I mean, that's just how you do it. It's strategy.
Moments later, Trump again deferred to Secretary of State Marco Rubio when he was asked if he could deport people using that same policy right now.
One thing I wanted to point out there, too, I forgot to mention, he said that I don't know what this is, the Alien Enemies Act. I didn't sign it. That brought up a lot of questions of, is he actually signing this stuff?
Yeah, he's like, other people handled that.
I think
Marco
it's
Rubio's doing a great job.
so everything Republicans do and conservatives and MAGA does is projection. If they're doing something bad and illegal, they will accuse the Democrats of doing it.
Mhm.
I don't think it's a coincidence that this whole auto pen thing with Biden just came out,
Yeah.
where they said nothing Biden did is valid because it was signed with an auto pen. Trump, if he really didn't sign this, then who is signing his executive orders? Which I believe to an extent, because when you see him in the office and they're doing the presentation for the executive orders, one of his members of his staff reads it to him and he goes, "Oh, okay, this is interesting." Not in the extent of like, I'm putting on a show here of like, explain this to me. I already know what it is, but I want to explain it to the crowd.
For the camera,
Yeah.
yes.
He sounds like he's hearing about it for the first time. And if, Marco Rubio or other members of his cabinet are just signing things for him, that's a major problem.
We've got judges banging their gavels saying, "Stop this," and ICE agents saying, "Well, I have a badge
Yeah.
and there's an executive order, so I'm just going to do whatever that executive order says, and I
Yeah.
don't care what a judge says." That is the most important problem that we have at this moment.
Yeah. Well, you know how for years the left has railed against ICE and basically said that it's a white nationalist group of paramilitary that just have free reign to do whatever they want in the United States and black bag people and kidnap people, basically. And we
Yeah.
want to abolish ICE. This is the reason. The right lost its mind. We talked about abolishing ICE. One of the reasons that this is going so well for Trump is because ICE is staffed with people who are white nationalists, racists. This wouldn't be happening if that wasn't the case. If they weren't already looking for an excuse and a reason to start brown bagging brown people, it wouldn't be happening. They are thrilled about this. Don't let anyone fool you.
And
They are the brown shirt foot soldiers in this.
I would say that I'd have the Secretary of State handle it because I'm not really involved in that. But the concept of getting bad people, murderers, rapists, drug dealers, all of these are really some bad people out of our country. I ran on that. I won on that.
However, when it comes to this issue of signature or no signature, if you look at the proclamation invoking this wartime power over the weekend, it's on the White House's website. It is listed as a presidential action, and it reads, "By the President of the United States of America." But even further than that, when you look at the version that is filed in the National Register, it bears President Trump's recognizable signature right there at the bottom. Now, given all of this, at 8:46 p.m. tonight, just a few minutes before we came on air here, the White House put out this statement. I'm going to read it to you in full. It says, President Trump was obviously referring to the original Alien Enemies Act that was signed back in 1798. The recent executive order was personally signed by President Trump invoking the Alien Enemies Act that designated Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization in order to apprehend and deport these heinous criminals.
Yeah, so if you caught that at the end, he's basically saying that he did sign the executive order. The White House's official statement is when he said, I don't know anything about it, I didn't sign it, they're saying that he is talking about the Alien Enemies Act, which was signed in the 1700s. This is the same act also that did internment camps. One of the darkest points in American history with the internment camps. All right, so you heard me mention before about how Josh Hawley and Mike Johnson have been kind of discussing getting rid of judicial review. This is going to be Laura Ingraham, one of the most worthless, evil people in all of media. I mean, she's a fucking demon. Interviewing Josh Hawley.
I understand you have legislation in the works that could address some of the issues that are plaguing this administration coming out of what are activist courts and an activist agenda.
Absolutely. The key thing to do here, Laura, is to end the ability of these district courts to abuse their judicial authority by issuing these so-called nationwide injunctions. Laura, I don't think they have that authority, properly speaking, under the Constitution, Article 3. What they're doing is they're purporting, these judges, they're purporting to go out and to bind parties and individuals who aren't before them. They're purporting to bind people who aren't in their district. We only have one Supreme Court that can bind the whole nation. District courts aren't supposed to be able to do it, and yet President Trump has been subject already to 15 separate so-called nationwide injunctions. In his first term, Laura, there were 64. We have never seen anything like this in American history. It's incredibly abusive, and Congress ought to end it. And we can end it by just saying no nationwide injunctions by these district courts.
Okay, so first of all, one thing I want to mention is the 67 injunctions in his first term. Okay. Basically, an injunction is issued when you do something unconstitutional or illegal.
Right.
Everyone, um, Catherine Levitt, the press secretary, made a big deal about this recently about how they feel that Trump is being targeted because he has all these nationwide injunctions put against him to stop his orders.
Yeah.
The reason he has the most is because he does the most illegal shit.
Right.
It's not that fucking hard. To
No.
do the most illegal shit, you're going to get the most injunctions. When you always try to press the Constitution, yeah, you're going to have more injunctions against you because you keep doing the most illegal shit.
Yeah, this is what happens when you have a president who is from a media and, just being rich background
Yeah.
and isn't educated in the Constitution.
Or even worse, he just doesn't think it applies to him.
Yeah.
Beca-
Which, hello, you're an American citizen.
yeah,
Unfortunately, it
I know.
applies to you.
They don't think they are though. They're a whole different class. Because we literally have a two-tier justice system in the sense of if you have enough money, it doesn't apply to you. Because a lot of our justice system is money based. You're fined.
Mhm.
It's the lawyers. If you do have enough money, it doesn't apply to you. You get out of anything you want.
Yeah, you can hire the best lawyer, you can hire a fixer,
Yeah.
you can, just pay the fine. A lot of times, a punishment is pay a fine, and if you can't pay the fine, you go to jail. So rich people pay the fine, poor people go to jail.
Yeah. And the other scary part about that is that was Josh Hawley basically saying he has Congress's backing. He's already, like we said before, he's already won over the Congress in the sense of they have no power. Everything's being done through executive order, right? Now, basically, he is saying Congress is going to back officially through legislation or attempt to your overriding of the judiciary branch too. All that's left then is executive branch, and he rules by fiat, and he's a king. So another two clips here I want to cover is Laura Ingraham, the world's biggest piece of shit again, with Tom Homan, the director of ICE. And this is him saying some wild, wild shit. And you know how I really like to say who people look like? I don't know if you've ever seen Reservoir Dogs.
Long time
Okay,
ago.
but he's really looking like Lawrence Tierney in Reservoir Dogs, who was Joe, who the guy who organized the whole group. I will show you a picture of him first and tell me when you see it. That's Lawrence Tierney in Reservoir Dogs.
This up, the Alien Enemies Act was actually a federal law. It's a statute enacted by Congress and signed by a president. Now that's under litigation, but put that aside, we still have Title VIII authority to remove illegal aliens from the United States, and we're going to continue to concentrate on those who are the biggest threat to our communities, the public safety threats.
But you're going to abide by court orders as long as, and go through your appeals process, but you are not going to defy those orders.
No. Matter of fact, 2 days after that flight took off, I even had a discussion with the acting director of ICE, and he reiterated that every Venezuelan on that plane was a known member of the TDA. So a lot of officers, a lot of criminal investigators, special agents who've done this for decades, looked at the intelligence information, the criminal investigation information, all the various social media and surveillance and government records and public records, and they are confident that they're all members of the TDA. And I'm not surprised that a member of the family said they're not a member of the TDA, but they were given due process according to the laws on the books.
I want to say, first of all, it's my opinion that Tom Homan is drunk all the time. That's my opinion. Allegedly, that's my opinion. Hey, he slurs all his words. Venezuelans. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah.
But basically, he said he's talking a little bit about the due process side of things. If you listen to him closely, he's basically saying that they check social media. Some of them have a record, whatever, right? There's no proof of any of this. So basically, the due process that has been done so far is just like, trust me, bro.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I'm getting from it.
Yeah.
And the next clip we have, he's going to talk a little bit more about it, and he's just going to give up the whole game.
Well, did you catch when he said, oh, I'm not surprised that some family members may have, turned in non-gang members to get rid of them?
I did hear
He
that
just
part.
said that.
The clip cuts off there, but yeah.
Yeah, he's like, oh, yeah, well, somebody might have falsely accused somebody of being in a gang to get rid of them.
This is the other thing about fascism. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You are going to turn. I have a friend of mine who has a very tenuous relationship with her parents because of all of this stuff going on with Trump and MAGA, right? And she asked me, she knows I'm very political. She knows I'm a leftist, this kind of stuff, right? She said, "What what do I do?" And I honestly, I'm at the point now where I said to her, I would keep a little distance because I honestly think that some family members are at the point where they will turn you in. You know, we're not at the point where they're rounding people up off the streets and turning people in, but I do think I have some family members, I have some people in my life, and you probably do too, people out there
Yeah.
that when it comes down to it, there's people that are gonna turn you in that are close to you. And I think that's the in 10 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever, however long it takes, if this keeps going in this direction, that's what happens. That's why we say you might be on the inside team right now, but what happens in down the road in 5 years from now where, you know, they're pulling people off the street and you have a disagreement with your neighbor and you say, my neighbor over there has some tattoo with the crown on it." They say, "Okay, we'll get him."
Yeah. It just
That's where this leads. That's what you
yeah.
people don't understand. That's where this leads.
When there's no true due process, then everything becomes a crime.
Yeah.
Existing in a space becomes a
And when
crime.
you have a dictator, the crime is in the mind of the dictator. Whatever Trump deems a crime, if Trump doesn't like the way you talk about him, it's a crime. Watch the
Yep.
first 40 minutes of Inglorious Bastards if you want to know how this ends up.
Yeah, I mean, we have people that are being black bagged because they were at a protest or they wrote an article for their college newspaper.
Yeah. So just
And just because they're here on a visa or a green card, they're getting disappeared. That's not what America is supposed to be about.
no. And just wait too. It's not even necessarily that you won't be MAGA. You might not be MAGA enough.
Hmm.
You've seen those videos of Saddam Hussein and the Un family, and people clap for 45 minutes because no one wants to be the first person to stop clapping.
Oh, I've never seen that.
Oh, it happens all the time in dictators. Like, you'll have
Yeah.
people that will have like an hour-long standing ovation in dictatorships because no one wants to be the first one to stop.
Well, I mean, it's just like when Trump said during, round one that he really likes how the North Korean people stand and clap.
Judge Patricia Millett actually said, and she knew she was going to be quoted, and this is why she said it in open court today in the D.C. Court of Appeals. Again, the same case. She said that Nazis were given more process than the individuals removed under the Alien and Enemies Act. Your response to her?
Well, it's just another example of out of touch a judge, an activist judge, making a comparison. Are you kidding me? It's the Holocaust and Nazis? First, what the hell has that got to do with anything?
All right, so this guy's clearly a fucking idiot. What it has to do with it is this is how it starts. This is how the process of taking rights away, dehumanizing people starts. We already have the dehumanizing down. We have a bunch of people who already view migrants as inhuman. They
Yes.
view trans people as less than human.
Hmm.
This is how it starts. You have to dehumanize, then you start taking rights, and then before you know it, you can justify. We're not killing people. We're killing, we're killing terrorists. We're killing murderers. We're killing, but under their definition, without any due process. It's so easy to see how you go from arresting people and deporting them to the fucking gas chambers. It's not that goddamn hard to understand.
No, history just keeps on spinning.
Yeah.
We're right back to Germany, 1930 what?
1939. I mean, when the war started, but it started before that. But anyway,
Yeah.
so that was kind of what's going on currently with, the deportation crisis and the human rights violations that we're seeing all over the country. It's just a start. We're going to keep up on that. There's got a lot more stories coming out. We even have more today that came out, but we will see you on the next video. If you would, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And click the link below to find us on our other social medias.